Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Word of the Day podcast. My name is Jamie Silva. I am your host. We've got another fantastic show for you today featuring another extremely useful word. But before we get to it, I'd like to introduce the person who will help me pleasantly explain it to you. And that would be today's talented voice actor now appearing on her third episode, Cassidy. Cassidy, welcome back to the show.
Hello once again.
Before we begin, a quick aside, actually. Some of you out there might have wondered before, why do we always introduce guests on the show as talented voice actors?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, the reason is that although they might not be involved in all the preparation, the research, and the writing that go into each episode, they really help bring the material to life in ways I don't think I could do just by myself as the host. And since everything here is obviously scripted, that makes them, in effect, voice actors.
Talented ones.
Yes, that's quite right. Very talented. Okay, it's now time to delve into today's word, which is a noun, histrionics, which appears to exist solely in the plural form. I would say this refers to unnecessarily dramatic behavior, or like an over-the-top emotional reaction to something. So, Cassidy, if instead of introducing you as a talented voice actor, I was just like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show another random and unremarkable person, Cassidy. If you got super offended at that and started to wave your arms and shout about how disrespectful it was of me to undercut your contributions like so, and then you kicked over the microphone and stormed out of the studio, I might observe to the listeners wow, those were some pretty major histrionics.
I would have done that, you know.
I'm sure you would have. But this is a classic setting where you might see histrionics appear, when someone suffers a mild slight and just flips their lid about it, probably in a showy, attention-grabbing way.
Now, before you throw a fit about how bad the online definition is, like you always do, it goes like this. Exaggerated, dramatic behavior designed to attract attention. So, very similar to your definition, though this adds two very important details about histrionics. First, that their goal is generally to attract attention, not the attention of passersby or other people in the room, but at least that of the person you're talking to.
Right. Histrionics are a way of conveying the idea that I'm extremely upset about this. But if I just calmly said in a normal tone of voice that I'm very upset, you probably wouldn't pick up on it because you're presumably not emotionally intelligent or perspicacious enough to do so. But if I say the same thing in a very loud voice and maybe smash some vases and start to cry, then that might actually get your attention, thus allowing us to have a frank discussion about whatever my grievance happens to be.
Are you actually going to do those things?
What things?
You know, the crying and the vases and all that. To illustrate for the listeners what histrionics are like.
Oh, no, definitely not. No, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, come on. How else are they going to know? You just gotta.
I just don't want to... Look, I'm not the one who's a talented voice actor. If you want to illustrate histrionics, be my guest. Literally, you are the guest. And see, look, there are even 3 vases right here in the studio, which can be used either for ambiance or for rage.
No, you should do the histrionics. This is your show, you're the host, and it's your responsibility. And frankly, I cannot believe you would treat your listeners this way. It breaks my heart to think of all the trouble they went to subscribe to your show and follow you on Instagram and tell their friends about it and do all this stupid stuff you asked them to do. And now you won't so much as emote for them. You refuse to even, quote unquote, bring the material to life a little bit now and again. It's like you don't even care. And you know what? If you don't care, why should I? It's all pointless. Don't you see? It's so stupid. I hate it. I hate this show. I hate everything.
Bravo, Cassidy. Very well done. You missed a vase, though. There's still one left.
Oh, my bad. Here.
Anyway, Cassidy, so you were in the middle of explaining 2 very important things about the official definition of histrionics. The first of which was that their purpose is to attract attention.
Oh yeah, so the second thing the online definition suggests is that whoever is doing the histrionics, the person who's making this big fuss, is actually in control of themselves to a large extent, and they actually choose to dial up the emotional intensity to an 11 and get all melodramatic.
Yeah, histrionics seem sort of like the adult version of a temper tantrum. I mean, obviously, adults don't lie on the floor kicking their legs and screaming, but you know how kids who do that will periodically, pause crying and look out of the corner of their eye at whatever adults are around to check and see if the rage display is working. And that's how you can kind of tell that maybe all that anguish you see just isn't as genuine as they want it to look.
Are you giving parenting advice?
Oh, no, not at all. That would be extremely unwise. I'm just pointing out the linguistic parallel here, which is that kids occasionally seem to remain in control of their tantrums to some extent. And in these situations, they have this purpose of getting attention and/or trying to get their way via the deliberate production of noise and drama. And histrionics typically share these qualities.
By the way, we've mainly talked about the noun thus far, histrionics, but there is an adjective form as well, that being histrionic. This is defined as, quote, overly theatrical or melodramatic in character or style, unquote. Basically an identical meaning such that you can either refer to someone's wild histrionics or you can say they're being histrionic.
That reference to theatrical is actually a great segue into the etymology. In Latin, histrio meant actor. This again reflects the idea that just as an actor is in control of the emotional states they portray on the stage, a histrionic person, or a person indulging in some histrionics, is also in control of themselves. And in fact, in researching various literature examples of histrionic for this show, the majority of them, particularly in older works, referred either to actual actors or to people who simply had excellent command of their facial expressions and emotions, and could manipulate them at will to suit the occasion. The narrower sense of histrionic that we're focusing on in this episode appears to be a more recent development.
This reminds me a lot of the noun theatrics, which means, quote, excessively emotional and dramatic behavior, unquote. This definition of theatrics, you'll notice, is almost identical to that of histrionics, which explains why it usually appears in settings like, calm down, will you? I've had it up to here with your theatrics.
And then, of course, there's the adjective theatrical, as in, Dave was being super theatrical about Megan's trip to visit an out-of-town friend. This has roughly the same intent as histrionic, but if I had to distinguish them in some small way, I think histrionic suggests a bit more of an in-the-moment response to a provocation, whereas theatrical behavior is probably premeditated. Like, even if histrionics are exaggerated for effect, they probably had their root in a genuine initial reaction. But again, I'm speculating a touch here.
I better stop you then. Is it time for the examples?
Yes, it is. You go ahead and start.
Example number 1. Judging by the histrionics and wild gesticulations of the driver in the car behind him, Owen figured he may have merged onto the freeway a little too slowly.
Example number 2. Melvin's histrionic response to the rainy weather, in which he lamented, "Our plans, our wonderful biking plans, they're ruined. My life is absolutely the worst. I kid you not." This convinced at least a couple of his friends that the rain had helped them dodge a bullet.
Example number 3. Jenny's histrionics, though loud and tearful, did not persuade her mother to add a single additional rainbow sprinkle to her already overloaded cupcake.
Example number 4 is slightly adapted from the book The Street Called Straight by Basil King. Quote, "If there was anything histrionic in Ashley himself, it was only in the sense that he was at his finest when, actually or potentially, there was someone there to see him, just as an actor is encouraged by a sympathetic viewing public to his highest histrionic efforts. Ashley then had the power to do precisely the right thing, which, in solitude, might have been dormant for lack of motive." Unquote.
Here, the author is using histrionic more in the sense of an actor, but I like that it emphasizes how the presence of an audience will inspire histrionics that would never appear in private.
Just so. Well, folks, that'll do it for us, and that'll do it for today's show. Cassidy, what a pleasure to have you on the program once again.
Thanks again.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that you can always get in touch with us at our email address, wotdpodcast@gmail.com, or, as mentioned before, follow us on Instagram at WOTD_podcast. For now, this has been another edition of the Word of the Day podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Silva. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.